The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The show is sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee, and if you like to attend our meetings, they're the second Thursday of every month at 6:30 at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to nashuagop.org to see our website and learn about the events that we have.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and welcome to People's View from the Speaker's office in Concord. And we have for our interviewee today, the Speaker of the House, Gene Chandler. Gene, thank you very much for taking your time with us. And tell us a little bit, you become Speaker just in the middle of a 2 year period.
Yeah,
and,
a little unusual. I maybe the first time ever. I don't really know for sure. I don't know that, so I shouldn't say. But certainly it's a bit unusual.
Well, you've done a good job so far. You've put together a pretty good advisory staff, and you've
I think so.
Covered the Republican spread, if you would.
Yeah, I pledged that if I was elected and Speaker, I would appoint a number of people from varying factions of our party, especially the Republican Party, so everyone would have a voice. Might not always agree, and they might not get their way, but I mean, we have had some different factions, as you know very well, and but I felt it was important to try to include everybody and listen. And as I said, if we get some of these groups to sign on to what we believe and what we're promoting a little bit, and if we get them half the time, that's more than we ever had them before. And if we get them a quarter of the time, that's more. So I think it's worked. People, we still have our differences within the party, certainly. But I think overall it's been productive, and it hasn't been as, quite as vocally opposition and stuff. It's all been, we've met and talked about things, and when we disagree, we disagree, and when we agree, we agree.
Well, I think, the people wanted to just make sure they were heard.
Right.
And I think they understand that if you band together, you get a lot more done. And I think we've done a lot so far.
Oh, I think it's worked out pretty well. There's always, you never get 100% of what you want. If you think you're going in, boy, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Well, that's not politics, is it?
But I think we've done well and pushed our Republican agenda pretty well, and helped. The governor's had some initiatives. We've had some disagreements on some things with the governor, certainly, but that's only normal, I guess. And, overall, I think it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think that we do have a few problems. We've done crossover now, so the House is looking at the Senate bills and the Senate's looking at the House bills. What do you think of the bills that are, I guess, most of concern to you? For example, the Senate bill, was it 393 on the scholarships?
193.
193.
Yep.
193.
Yeah, that's an issue that we have been very strongly supportive of. Some people don't think we have been because it's taken a long time, but the bill itself, I shouldn't say is overly complicated, but it has a lot to it. But the biggest problem has been trying to craft a bill so we can get enough votes to pass it.
Well, definitely.
And you make a change one way and you gain 2 people and lose 4, and then you try to gain. So it's been a back and forth thing to try to come out. I think they have a good amendment now. Matter of fact, today in Finance Division 2 is having a work session on the final version. So I think it'll be something that should be supportive. I think it's a good thing for the state. I think it's a good thing for the kids in the state.
Think so, yeah.
There's a lot of opposition from the school boards and some, the superintendents associations, and because of what you could call a downshifting or cost shifting from some local control. And as I met with the governor the other day, who was a strong supporter of this idea, this initiative, obviously, I told him, I said, there's no sense of us trying to tell people that it isn't, because it is downshifting. The thing is, we need to let them know it's not very much. And if you agree, if you're going to take the position that no good can come out of anything that downshifts, then you're not going to support this.
Right.
But on the whole scope of things, it's a very small percentage of the local money that's going to fund this program. It's not widely used, for one thing, but it does provide, and are there abuses possible? Maybe, you never know. But for the most part, it provides parents with an opportunity to send their kids to a place where they can get an education that they're not able to get in their local school for a number of reasons. Nothing against the schools. It's just that some kids have different needs, and they're not being provided at the local level. And this provides them an opportunity to take advantage of a program to help the kid. That's what this is about. And
I think that's what school choice is about,
Yeah.
where you're focusing on the child and trying to find a good match for
Right.
them, because they learn better in certain. I know I had the same problem. Some teachers I had that I don't know. It was like they talking in a different language,
yeah.
and then I go to somebody else, and the world opened to
Right,
me.
yeah. And that's what this is providing. As I told the governor, I said, we need to let these districts know that if that kid wasn't in that school, that district's not going to get that money anyway.
Right,
So
right.
it isn't like that thing, you're taking 8 kids out of the Nashua School District. Well, maybe if it's better for the kid, I wish they would think about that.
Yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of their own parochialism. They need to think of what's best for the student.
And I think some of the numbers we've heard are a bit of an exaggeration, on, like $50 million. And
Well, that's the problem. And it's like, you've been here. Whatever
Yes.
the issue is, one side will embellish it to do
Right.
something, and the other side, but the committee is done. They have the factual numbers, and it's there's a cap on the number of students that can come anyway.
That's
so-
what I thought was the.
Right.
I remember we had our caucus a couple of weeks
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
and the talk was that there's going to be a cap on
Right.
it. So we're not going to worry about these large numbers. We're not stealing a lot of money
Right.
from the different.
Yeah, and so that's just something. It's a scare tactic, unfortunately. But we'll see. And we have some knowledge of other states that have incorporated things like this on how many students actually take advantage of it. The LBA's done a great job with coming up with what they expect would be the number of students from districts and things, and it just isn't that significant. And I guess I just urge people, especially school boards and representatives, think about the kid. What's best for the student? And sometimes we forget that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I know we're going to have a tough time in Nashua because the school board has come in with a budget above what the mayor has said as far as the increase.
Right.
And so we're going to have trouble anyway. So I know people ought to understand that we don't know exactly how much, but there's a cap on it.
Right.
You're not going to be really straining any budget.
And for the most part, these kids that are taking advantage of this are having a problem. And as I said, I'm not going to say that it always isn't a problem with the school. It may be, but for the most part, it's just a problem with what the kid is, how they're being educated, and what they need to be able to be educated. And that's important, I think. So
People learn differently,
Yeah.
and I think some of the recommendations that we've seen, or some of the information that we've seen for charter schools, has shown us that under certain circumstances, these people really shine.
Yeah.
The school in the one charter in Nashua has won a national award because of what they accomplished.
Yeah, and they for the most part, those kids probably were not going to have that level of achievement in the public school system. And we need the public school system. I'm a strong supporter of public school systems, but one size doesn't fit all, and different kids need different avenues for them.
Yeah, I know. Way back when I went to elementary school and high school. In high school, they did treat the students more to their capabilities. And I don't see that always here. I think we have a problem with English being the second language,
Right.
number one, and number two, with some of the poverty situations where the parents aren't as much involved with the
Yeah.
students.
And unfortunately, I
education.
think it's true, and it's unfortunate, but there is only so much money, and there's only as much the school system can do. With the students that are in the schools now, the teachers, I guess you'd say they're kind of teaching down. So exceptional kid is kind of left behind a little bit with being challenged, and that's unfortunate, but I don't know. So
Well,
this gives them a
that's-
chance to succeed.
That's
So,
right. In their abilities, you focus on that. Well, what about some of the other things that were a little contentious, like the family leave program?
Yeah,
itself?
the Family Leave Act is on its way to somewhere. Let's see, where's that going now? Probably over to the Senate. That's right. Yeah,
Right.
we passed it. We passed it 2 or 3 times and made some changes as it comes along. I think the issue with that, no matter whether you agree or disagree with the idea of having a Family Leave Act, is just the financing of it. It's somewhat problematic, even as it left here, despite the fact the Finance Committee tried to do a good job, and I think they did a good job. But I think it's problematic on what the costs will be and how effective it can be. And the administration, the setting up of the program it's a lot of money, perhaps. We don't know. And so we'll see what the Senate, they'll take a look at it and see what they do, I guess.
Why do we have to treat that more like workman's compensation, where the state gets involved with the insurance rather than allowing the insurance agencies to handle
Well, I think
something like
that was the issue. Of course, that some of us supported doing it that way, but the House didn't, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, the House, that's
Came
their
up with
decision.
this,
That's
yeah.
what they came. So that's what's going to the Senate. But I think it'll be looked at very different over there, perhaps. See what happens.
Well, I think almost any sort of commercial activity can better be done by the private
Right,
industry,
yeah.
where there's a little bit of competition.
Yeah, and of course, the thing is, it's one of these things. You say Family Leave Act. Oh, great idea.
Oh, yeah.
Until you start looking into how much it costs to implement it and how much it's going to cost to run it, and things like that. And it's a whole different ballgame, Because sure, who wouldn't? So they take a poll and say most people. Well, yeah, if you ask me, I'd probably support it too. But now you tell me how it's going to cost and what it's going to do and what it could do to employers and employees. And
The regulations were a big part of that
Oh, yeah,
legislation.
Yeah, and it's really amazing. I mean, one little thing is that that I don't think was fixed. Employees actually could have signed up and gotten in the program, but yet if they didn't work long enough and they had to leave or for whatever, they didn't get any of their money back.
Yeah.
They was see you later, So there were some problems with
Yeah.
it certainly, and hopefully the Senate will either fix them or put it in study till they have time to fix them or something. So.
And there was probably a couple other ones. Which one, in your mind, were the most contentious other ones that we're looking at?
Well, Medicaid expansion,
That's
of course,
true. That's
is a big issue, which passed the committee, and that will be on the floor this week. House leadership went to the committee. We opposed the bill as it was written. Said we think it needs a tougher work requirement for one thing. The work requirement that's in there, in our opinion, is not tough enough. It allows literally almost anyone to, they say there's a
out
work,
in a way,
they say
yeah.
there's a work requirement, but it's really not much of one. And we think people, if they're going to get a benefit or be eligible for something, and if they're able to work, they should work. We're not talking about people who aren't able to work,
Right.
the people that really need something. But if you're able to work in this state, you should be working.
That's
and
right.
there's plenty of jobs out there.
I was
for
just
sure,
going to
so
say,
you
there's a
don't have
lot
to
of
look very
people
far to find
there.
a job.
No, and there's a lot of opportunity to get education to be
Oh,
able
yeah.
to qualify
Yeah.
for those jobs.
I mean, I'm sure you can walk down a street in any street in Nashua and you could have 10 jobs, 5 blocks probably. So.
Well, they're having job fairs very
Right.
frequently,
Yeah.
just trying to get somebody.
So that issue will be coming up, and that'll be fairly contentious. So our positions, some positions have been that some people don't support it anyway, no matter what. Our position, and at least I think the majority of Republicans sort of have not been as opposed to it as we are with any state funds. If there's no state money in it, I think most Republicans, or certainly a number of them, would look favorably upon that. The Democrats, I think, they'll vote for anything to keep it going, and that's fine. That's just their position.
They
So,
march
right, yeah.
in a tight crowd.
So if we're going to have something, we think it really shouldn't have any state funding in it, which last time it didn't. this time what they're proposing. Now they can, I mean, the talk is, well, there's no state funding because they're taking money from the alcohol fund, which
Yeah.
isn't really the general, well, it's just a shell game, in my opinion. It's
That's
state
right.
money.
That's
no matter
right.
what you
One
do.
way or
So-
the other. It's,
so I think one of the tasks that they're going to be trying to do is figure out if there is some other way. And I will say the governor has put in yeoman's work on this bill in particular. I give him lots of credit. I think there was something in one paper, I read it the other day, and it's true. It's lots of times governors will send people to Washington, and he goes himself. And he's got a number of advancements in this bill and been really helpful on the work requirement and trying to get the federal money. So he's worked very hard. He understands the problems and what it needs to get done, and he's done a good job with that. Yeah.
Well, the other point too was this is for a 5-year extension instead of the 2-year extension. And
Right.
there was some question about what was the federal government going to be doing in the meantime.
Right.
I mean, are we going to be able to modify this law if they change what they're going to be doing?
And that's one of the things that's up for contention. I shudder to predict what the Finance Committee might do with the bill, but I believe that probably will come out of Finance in either 2 or 3 years. I think
that might
the
be a better
5-year
one
will
myself.
be gone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, whether that succeeds on the floor or something else, but I think the Finance Committee will recommend either 2 or 3 years.
I think that's wise, and because I think there are going to be
Right.
changes of some
Oh, yeah,
sort
yeah.
in what's going to happen out of the federal government. And they have a new secretary of HHS there
Right.
down there.
So it's a lot depending on what they'll do and approve, obviously. So, yep.
Well, another issue too is the rail issue.
Rail. Yes.
You didn't think I was going to bring that up?
I heard something about rail issue. You know? Heard about the rail issue for 20 years. And I'll just speak for myself. As you know, I opposed the $4 million this time, last time, and the time, I don't know how many times, but forever. And always, forever, I actually, because this is a Nashua show, I did support the original, boy, how many years ago was this now? We're talking, what, 15, 16 years or more maybe, when Congressman Bass got
Well, that's
that money?
before my time.
Yeah, no, but I mean, we had that all set.
Yeah.
I say we and others, not me, but to get that
Down
to
there,
Nashua,
yeah.
to Lowell, and
Sometime I know in 2008 it was pretty close,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden,
then right or wrong, Nashua decided they'd tie their wagon to getting the whole thing to Boston, from Boston to Manchester to Concord, and that scuttled the Nashua project pretty much. So anyway, that's hindsight. I just don't feel that to do this, I don't think it's viable. To Concord especially, and probably even to Manchester. That's why the committee, as you know, you sit on the committee, opted to use the money for bus service, which in some of our minds provides a much more reliable way to move people around. Trains run twice a day, kind of, so you're kind of stuck. If you want to go somewhere when the train isn't running, you can't go. The bus system is much more flexible and been very successful in New
it
Hampshire.
has, and what I've heard from the coast area, they've really expanded.
Yeah,
even more
they got parking problems, so it's nice to have parking problems. That means people are using it, you know.
They have 2-level buses
Yeah,
even now.
Yeah, and they go to New York
Yeah.
twice a day, I think. I'm not sure, but yeah, so the whole thing, it works. I mean, if you want to go to Logan Airport, you can go to Logan Airport. You don't have to go to, I don't know, North Station and then get to Logan or wherever. But so I think that's the way to go myself. You know, you can argue whether the trains would work. They might, but there's always been a subsidy associated with it. Now, that amount, we never even did inquire. I'm guessing the last time we looked 2 or 3 years ago, it was like they estimated at least $14 million a year, at least, subsidy. And that's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So those were problems. It is in, right now, bus and rail are both in the capital
Right.
budget as it left the committee. It's in the Senate right now. Who knows how that will come out of there, but it's in both places. But at least the bus portion is in there. And
Well, I think that's what I pushed for on the committee because I think we weren't looking at the bigger picture. You can have a lot of variations because the train only goes, as you said, in one place, and maybe it makes 2 or 3 stops in between. But if people are going down to the greater Boston area, they'll trying to look at the whole 128 region. That's where a lot of businesses are.
Right.
And if they have no communication, no transportation
Yeah.
with those, so maybe you use a combination of buses and trains and to coordinate the ones going in from New Hampshire.
Right.
Do we have just one going in? No, we have 2 or 3 going in. And so you have different spokes, and now you got to worry about the wheel. And that's the way in my travels in the business area, I go over to Japan, they have a beautiful system for that. And people do that all the time. I don't know how they commute. Even where I grew up on Long Island, they had 2, 3 railroad trains.
Well, I think that was the thing. I had someone in my office, and they weren't here talking about rail necessarily. I forgot even what the real topic was, but they were talking about how when we got onto rail, and I was explaining my opposition to that segment, and they were talking about, well, in New York, we could, and I said, yeah, but that's different. You could, the trains run on the hour or something, or the half hour, you could actually use it to commute with. If you got a train running twice a day to Boston, it's not the same thing. It can take you to work if you're going right there and home, but if you have something, people want to go somewhere else,
Right.
It's not a good, so hopefully they'll work something out, and we'll see what happens.
But I was I lived down there in the period where the expansion of Long Island just bloomed.
Right.
And it brought businesses out to the island.
Yeah.
So there was it was commuting both ways, actually, which surprised me. Looking
Oh yeah,
back
no,
at
I'm
that.
sure it would. And I think the part of the problem is that it's probably fairly evident that subsidy, the more you run it, the more the subsidy is going to be, because it doesn't pay for itself. So, the 14 million is based on the 2 trips. If you run it 4 trips, the subsidy is going to be more.
That's right.
That's what's happened in Maine, even though the Down East is fairly successful with ridership. I noted with quite a few years ago, I'll say 4 or 5, could be more now because I lose track of time, but I was talking to someone about it because I come from Maine, so I follow it quite a bit, and they were saying, the ridership on the Down Easters went up quite a bit this summer. And they said, yeah, because they lowered the fare. So they got a lot more people riding it, but it meant more, state of Maine had to subsidize more.
a little bit more.
Yeah,
huh?
I said, yeah, you could really increase the ridership, make it free. But it'll work out, I guess.
Well, I think if you look at the rest of the United States, there's light rail, there's other ways of doing it. I was down in Florida. Uber is working with Tampa, the city of Tampa, to have a system of Uber cars handling the rush hour for them.
Yep.
Because the odd times that are needed,
Right.
they could do that easily.
Yeah, and
with
that's
their
the key
people.
thing, I think, that people forget a little bit, that people really aren't willing yet, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, to give up their car only because they can go where they want to go when they need to get there. That's the thing. Until something else takes that place, why, it's just going to be a problem, I think. But
Well, I know when I first came out to New England, I had to commute to Boston, and the 5 of us did a good job at that. So we each only had one day a week that we had to drive.
Right, that's good, yeah.
So anyway, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Do we have any other thing that you'd like to cover before?
I don't think so. I mean, I've enjoyed being here this year. It's especially fun. As you know, when I took this I call it the interim job kind of for the 1 year thing, I said I wouldn't run for the position again. And because I as much as I enjoy doing it, I don't enjoy running for it. And with so many reps, it was easy this time because everyone was already here. So you didn't have to go around meeting new people.
Right.
I knew them all.
Right.
Well, not all, but most of them. But it is quite a job if you have to actually run, because, if you're even just running from the Republican side, there is probably maybe as many as 500 people in a primary. Now, you got to go see them all, and you don't know how many of them are going to win, so that gets kind of frustrating. You say, I'm beating my head here. And then even after the election, then you've got to go see the people that won the primary.
Right.
And quite a few of those aren't going to win the election either, so you feel like you're spinning. It's a lot of work to run for the speaker.
Yeah.
So I just said I wasn't interested in running again. I would take it this time and do it, and I've enjoyed it so far. And I will say it's a little freer when you know you're not running again. the decisions, I think, are easier to make, because not that I was influenced when I was previously the speaker on well, if I do this, am I going to get elected? But you can't help but think about that. I say, well, you know, but now it's, I don't care. I think this is the right thing to do, so we're going to do it. And, you know, I'm not running, so.
Well,
but anyway.
I'm sure we enjoyed having you. I think you've done a good job, and I know you'll always be involved. You have been.
Oh, yeah.
In senior support of the Republican Party.
Yeah, and you've
one way or
always
the
done
other.
it. I've always enjoyed visiting Nashville. Boy, it's seen some ups and downs from the Republican viewpoint
yeah.
in Nashville. So, you know, where I don't know what the most we've had, down to like, we got as low as like 4 one year, didn't we?
Yeah, we went from
is-
4 to 24.
Yeah, so
And
it's
then,
been some ups, and I've been to.
And now we're down to about 9, I think.
Yeah, but running for speaker, I'd come down to speak to the candidates, and I
Right.
always enjoyed you have good Democratic reps. I think Nashville
Yeah.
sends up for the most part, some pretty quality people, and they're enjoyable to work with.
So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting, and
Okay.
thank you again for
Okay,
the time.
anytime. Yeah,
I
I'm glad to do
appreciate
it.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.